What's up, Planet Earth, and welcome back to the channel. Today, what I want to do is go through a deck profile of a competitive Cyber Dragon and ABC deck. But before we get into it, feel free, if you want to support this channel, feel free to go ahead and check out the TCG link either below in the tabs or in the, description. Almost forgot what it was called, but in the description section. Bunch of goodies usually goes up. As you can see, I tried to make them fairly priced in comparison to the original to like the rest of the market, so that way it's easier for you guys to snag them with all the pleasure in the world. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Okay, so to start, we're gonna need two Cyber Dragons. Even though it is a Cyber Dragon ABC build, having three Cyber Dragons in this deck is kind of bricky. I've always found that to be bricky, and so two Cyber Dragons works just fine, especially in the account of the other Cyber Dragon cards that do count as Cyber Dragons when you use them. And there's multiple other ways to get Nova and Infinity combo going without the need of having a third Cyber Dragon, so it's not that much of a problem. You run three cores. It's your spell searcher. It's also your trap searcher. It's a must in this deck. You must have three, otherwise you're gonna find yourself in a very sticky situation. So you're always gonna want to run core, and at the same time, core can also get get access to, I believe, any Cyber Dragon monster, but essentially your Cyber Dragon when you control the monsters, and cores in your grave. So there's always a couple of those outs. 3 Hertz. 3 Hertz can basically recycle or search out your Cyber Dragon. When I say recycle, is what I usually find myself doing is ditching the core to the grave at some point, or having to link summon core away, and I have Hertz in my hand. I can easily send him to the grave and then get the core back and prepare for a follow-up turn play, having core in my hand or a millable card in my hand to pitch off when I get the ABC out on the board. 3 Galaxy Soldier. It's basically an instant infinity. It's searchable by the cyber repair plant. It's easy to get to. It's not that hard to really use, and he can search himself out, so it's self-explanatory. You have 2 of each of the ABC pieces. You can run 3 of them. I usually, if I run 3 of them, it's too much ABC mechanic, not enough Cyber Dragon mechanic, and so the deck can sway one way or another, and it's a lot harder to get the negation that you want to get with Infinity out on the board. I find that 2 of each ratio is completely and totally fine. And it definitely gets you the resources you need, especially if you have like that A1 golden hand. It's like a never-ending cycle with these 3 pairs. 2 of each of the silver and gold gadget. I'm not gonna lie, these cards are probably another play extender or another enabler, and the reason why I say that is because it's basically like your instant gear gigant. You normal summon or special summon one of them, you can special summon another level 4 machine from your hand. So it's like an easy 3 monster on the board if you also have one of the ABC pieces. And then if you can easily combo that off with the Union Hanger. The Symphonic Engine, so 3 guitars, 1 mics. You want to run 1 mics. You can run 2 to avoid bricking, but you essentially want to run 1 because you want to decrease your chance of seeing him in your hand. You only want him from in the deck, and just because guitar gets him straight from the deck out onto the field, and it gives you an extra normal summon. On top of that, this is a level 5 machine, so this is also another Nova Infinity target, basically. So it works very great, and even if you can't get to that Infinity or Nova, he's still a 2300 beater on the board, so he can still produce, and you can also still use him for links. So he can still definitely come in clutch in the game. So that's it for the monsters. Just going to jump right in with the spells. Here I have 3 Called by the Graves for those pesky hand traps out in the world. I used to run 2, not because of the ban list, but mainly because I thought I would only need 2, and then I quickly discovered that you need 3. It's primarily because you want to have at least 1 in your opening hand, and it's mainly because People usually have at least one hand trap in their opening hand already, and so you want to be able to prevent them from stopping you and or stopping your plays. So that's why you run three Union Hanger, three Terraforming. If you're running ABC, you need to run Union Hanger. It's self-explanatory. It adds one of the pieces to your hand. It also activates one of the pieces from the deck out onto the field. The reason why I say activate is because it goes from the deck to the spell or trap zone, not onto the monster zone. So your opponent technically can't even ash this because it's not a special summon from the deck. It's like a set activation, whatever the case, however you want to call it, straight from the deck. Two repair plans. You want to run two. One reason is if you can draw it and then you also have core, then you can use core search effect for another kind of beneficial play or whatever the case may be. But you also want to run two because Cyber Repair Plant also helps you recycle light machines that are in the grave. And so the only light machine that you would be recycling is the ABC. And you'll find out as to why. And it's mainly for those games or those matches that kind of draw out until you have like maybe 5 or 6 cards left in the deck. And believe me, this deck can hold out just long enough to where you can get down to about 10 to 5 cards left in the deck, and you've already like exploited so much resources. And I'll be honest, when I went to regionals about a year ago, before the recent ban list, or before like the last 3 ban lists really, this card came in super clutch for me, and I ended up forcing a draw in that match. And the only reason why it was a draw was because we ended up going into overtime. This was literally right before the whole new during the end of the current phase is the end of the match, whatever the case would be. So this card definitely comes clutch, and this card also adds additional resources to your hand, such as the ABC pieces, because they're also light machine monsters. One Rev System and one Monster Reborn. They're both basically Monster Reborn. One's the Cyber Dragon specific, one's a generic. So if it's a Monster Reborn, you gotta run it. One Cyber Emergency. It searches out your hurts, it searches out your core, it also searches out your basic Cyber Dragon. But I usually use this to search out either hurts or core. More hurts than core at times, because most of the times I would see core in my hand before I would see this, or I would see this and core in my hand. And sometimes I'll have hurts and core, not hurts and core, hurts and this card in my hand. But essentially, this is like your play extender. This is also a couple out. This also provides you a couple outs, and it's really hard to keep this card from really being successful, because it has its own recycling mechanic built into it. So basically, if your opponent tries to ash this, you can pitch another card from your hand and get this card back into your hand. Unfortunately, though, it's a hard once per turn. I wish it wasn't. Otherwise, the recycling mechanic would have been A1 in that same turn. Your Dark Hole and your Raigeki board wipes. Problem solvers against a lot of decks. Obviously, it's not a problem solver, I think against Thunder Dragons, but for the most part, like BAs and things like that, at least it can get you the wiggle room you need. So you're always gonna want to have those. And then last but not least, one Instant Fusion, just another level 5 machine play, an easy free level 5 machine play at the cost of 1,000 light points, which is never a bad thing. Onto the extra deck, if I can. There we go. So one Beauregard Dragon. He's an interesting collection, really. If you were successful in destroying any card, per se, like if I like Raigeki, their Colossus, for example, and then I somehow was able to destroy using Raigeki, like maybe if I had maybe got Effect Failure or whatever the case, or whatever. The point is if I could destroy it using Raigeki or some other mechanic that says destroy it, I can easily pop my Symphonic Guitar and then special summon Colossus onto my side of the field, and now my opponent has to deal with the issue of not being able to add cards besides drawing them to their hand. And so this card is an interesting Monster Reborn and an effective use of the resource, because usually when you use Guitar in the scale, it just sits there because you don't really use it ever again, because the next time you draw it, you're gonna want to normal summon it just to special summon the Guitar back out. And you know, it'll make sense as to why guitar would be in the grave and not in the extra deck, because you would use guitar as Exceed's material. So that's essentially why Beauregard Dragon is in here. And it's also a 3K beater, and he also points 2 arrows down. So I mean, why not? I can play the four link play, so might as well exploit that option, right? One, summon sorceress. There's no reason. I don't have to explain why summon sorceress is in this deck. It's basically a free one of the ABC pieces, and I can still use the ABC piece effect depending on the scenario, because it only negates effects on the field. It doesn't negate grave effects, which is great. So it's it's great exploitation. If done right, I can use summon sorceress, the piece. And if I successfully got Nova out, I can use the other Cyber Dragon that would have special summoned out to get Beauregard Dragon. So it's a sweet play. It's a play extender. It's only a one of. You don't realistically need one. So if you want to run more than one, be my guest. I don't. To be honest, there's not a lot of room in the extra deck to play with to be able to run another copy. One Cleefert. He's like a generic machine link to play play card. He also negates effects, so he can handle problems on the board, such that of Colossus. So, I mean, other things, he can also hit. He's unaffected by spells and traps, so you can't really get like engaged. I think it's engaged or whatever the spell, the Sky Striker spell card is. He also can't be Raigeki or anything. So your opponent can't really realistically rely too much on spells or traps or their link monsters to deal with this card. They have to essentially rely on muscle or regular monsters to deal with this card. And it also handles well against dinos, especially with Ultimate Conductor, because one, link monsters can't be face down or in defense position. Two, I can negate Conductor's effect, so that way your opponent can essentially face plant your other monsters that are on the board. So it works out, and it's saved my skin so many times. One Seeger, because why not? It's a muscle gain. It's also kind of a way to keep yourself in the game if you're in a tight situation. I've got into that situation a couple days ago when I was playing against a Mass Hero deck build, and boy oh boy, this card came clutch for me against that. One Binary Sorceress, and it's mainly because I want to be able to exploit additional link areas, and also exploit the ability of getting life points back if I ever come to it. If this is Binary Sorceress, is more like a second or third turn kind of a thing, because you're mainly going to have the one link monster, which is usually going to be either Summon Sorceress or Beauregard Dragon. Your ABC right here, your ABC would have to be in this zone for this to work, and then your Infinity here. And it usually works pertaining to ABC, because you would tribute the ABC, get the 3 pieces out, and if your 3 pieces are still successfully out on the field by the start of your turn, you can pardon me, you can push into your Binary Sorceress play and go from there. So you would either co-link it with Seeger or co-link it with Underclock. And so I use Underclock just to kind of get over big boy problems, and boy oh boy, this card has came clutch to me when I went into to my last regionals, which again was like earlier this year. When I say earlier this year, I'm not talking about like in the past regionals that was in December, but I'm talking about like it was in January. And so this card came clutch. It's probably the reason why I was able to get over Masterpiece and all of that when the problem came about. So that's it for the link monsters. For other, we're gonna leave them down right there. For the other plays, we have number 61 Volcasaurus. This is mainly because I've ran into zombies. Zombies can be a problem, especially Doom King and Zombie World being out. So when Zombie World's out, it really nulls my ability to get Nova and Infinity on the board, because they need machines. But when Zombie World is out, they are zombies, so I can't go into that play. But I can go into Volcasaurus and exploit the fact that Doom King is a 2800 beat stick, and just deal 2800 damage straight to my opponent just by going into this rank 5 play, detaching one, and say, hey, pop him, and then get rid of that problem. Again, that also assumes if Doom King has already used his effect, and with this deck, he's guaranteed to have already used most of his effects, or all of his effects, and each of them are hard ones per turn, so it's not going to be that much of a problem. One Gigant, your machine searcher. I mainly use him to get symphonic guitar to my hand, so it's like a play extender. Ugh, pardon me. Whew. It's a great play extender. I'm able to push plays because I it's like a quick access to an additional normal summon. So it's never a bad time to get him. Sometimes I might not be able to get to him. That's mainly because I've already have other mechanics, or I've already had Symphonic in my hand, so I can exploit him for other purposes at that point. So everything with Gigant, it's usually you get guitar, or if you already have guitar, it's depending on the circumstance. Two Novas, one Infinity. I can get why people would run two Infinities. I've only come across the issue of only needing one, and that's mainly because I have ABC. So Infinity does negate the effects, and Infinity slaps itself right on top of Nova like it's no one's business. But with having ABC and then other negation abilities such as Called by the Grave, it's not essentially needed to have an additional one. And then Nova, you run two Nova because one, they can easily keep the first Nova from coming to, so at least you have a second Nova to do it. And on top of that, you can push for an extended play with Nova, because Nova is basically a monster reborn for Cyber Dragons, and so being able to special summon essentially two Cyber Dragons, having two Novas out on the board, it's always a plus. It is always a plus. One Panzer Dragon. Oh, that's it for the XCs, by the way. But one Panzer Dragon. So your level 5 machine, instant fusion target. One Mega Fleet. Get handle. When you're running Cyber Dragons, you're gonna want to handle annoying problems that are in the extra deck location. So that's why I have the one Mega Fleet. Some people might want to run two. Some people probably do run two. I do acknowledge that two can be better, but the game has evolved so much and is so fast nowadays that you only realistically end up using one. But in certain measures, you're gonna want to need two, and so we'll get into that in a little bit. And then last but not least, two ABCs. The reason why I only have two ABCs is because I can recycle ABC Dragon like easily, and that's mainly because of Cyber Repair Plant, so I don't need three. And the ABC pieces do come back out onto the board from the banish places, and so it's not like you need a third one and you need a third set of the ABC. You can get by without them. So that is it for. Oh, I can't grab that card. That is it for the main deck. Onto the side deck. One Shared Ride. It's kind of like it's like the controlled version of Max C. If your opponent searches a card instead of special summoned monster, you basically draw a card as well. So it's kind of like a control method to keep your opponent from going so far into their turn. One Soul Charge. This card wins games basically. You special summon monsters and you can go into mad link plays from there. One Twin Twister, and one Cosmic Cyclone for back row problems. The Solemn Brigade. You don't want them to gain their Colossus or Sky Striker or whatever it is that the problem may be. Like maybe Prank Kids. You might want to keep them from going too deep into it. Now, I don't know. I have the one Cyber Network as kind of like a backup plan, because Cyber Network, when it goes from field to grave, I get to special summon as many light machine monsters that are banished as possible. So it's like a soul. What is it? Soul Fusion. It's not Soul Fusion. It's like a Soul Charge, but for the banish, and I don't pay life points. I just lose my battle phase, and even then, this is probably more strategically done against your opponent's turn, so you don't have to worry about a battle phase. The only catch with it is they lose the monsters lose their effects, but that shouldn't be that much of a problem, because they'll usually be monsters you use to kind of push link plays or whatever the case may be, and so that's probably going to be the outcome for when they do come out onto the field. And even then, you can just swing with them with Brute Might or Brute Force. One Cybernetic Overflow. It's basically just more back row, but it also eliminates monster problem, and it also searches cyber spell or traps just like a core. So it's like a trap version for a core with additional bonuses. So I have the one mainly because I can't make the room in my main deck. I already run 41 card main deck, and it's mainly because I want to keep the Dark Hole and Raigeki in there. Otherwise, it's easy to just play a 40 card deck. So there's not a lot of wiggle room to be able to have two of these. The two Droll and Lockbird, I currently don't have them. I had them once upon a time, but I let them go basically for different reasons. But I do want to include the Droll and Lockbird cards because it is probably the one hand trap that's most successful in comparison to like the Ash or the Ghost Ogre, whatever the case may be. The only downside is and it's probably why people would probably prefer the Ash or whatever, is that you have to wait for your opponent to kind of successfully get a card to their hand before you can draw and lock them. So it's not that big of an issue really. It's like one card, but then they can't really do much. The reason why it's cited is because there are decks out there that don't essentially do any of the searches. They just kind of flush it out onto the board or into the grave, which is why Ash Blossom wins over Droll and Lockbird. But I still wouldn't want to give up hope on the Droll and Lockbird. I feel like the Droll and Lockbird is a better hand trap in comparison to most of the hand traps. One Chimera Tech. You don't know when you're gonna need a Chimera Tech, especially with Cyber Dragons being a bigger thing now than what they were. So my anticipation is seeing Cyber Dragons every now and then, whether it be if at regionals or if it's at locals. And so I would have another way kind of out. But I would also assume if my opponent is playing Cyber Dragons, they're also running this. But the plus side of this is this card itself cannot be used as fusion material, so it's not too damaging. One Hippo Shinigami. It's mainly for those pesky zombie world players out there. At least I would be able to have a generic link too, so it doesn't rely on the type so much as just the attribute. And this card would also ding zombie or dark players, because dark players would lose 500 attack and defense, while light players like myself would gain 500 attack and defense. So there's that. One Decode Talker because negation. One Baguska because why not? And then there's that second Mega Fleet that I was talking about. I do feel that Mega Fleet is such an essential piece, especially when you're playing Cyber Dragons against anything really. And Mega Fleet is probably one of the easiest outs to Colossus for the most part. I've seen a couple more Thunder Dragons play, and a lot of them, like I said, I've always seen them bring the Colossus up here. And so you get that golden hand, you can whisk away the Colossus, and then you can practically win the duel from there. So it's basically the end of the game once you get rid of that Colossus. So yeah, that there's my deck profile of the Cyber Dragon ABC mechanic. This is a competitive build. I have a lot of faith in this build, and it's only going to get better, especially when Platinum Gadget comes out eventually. I think it comes out in April in the dual power. So once that comes out, I can go ahead and do another deck profile and see what goes down on that one. All right. If you guys want to see a couple of test hands, go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and hit the comment section and say, hey, I want to see how you play this deck. If you guys are that curious. If you guys like these kinds of videos, I can keep doing them. I enjoy doing these kinds of videos. Deck profiles is probably one of the most entertaining things outside of doing pack openings and other discussions. And I do try my best to bring great quality content to you. And again, if you wish to support the channel, just simply hit that subscribe or follow button depending on the platform that you are watching from. I'm just simply restacking my cards. I like to have my link monsters up on top. Go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button depending on the platform you're watching this on, and feel free to say hello, swing by, or do whatever the case may be. If not, if you wish to get something out of supporting the channel, you can go ahead and hit that TCG link below in the description or below in the tab if you're watching this on Twitch. and check out some of the stuff that we have there. Again, let's see what we've got going on over there. We've got a couple of Gumblar dragons. We got a Phantom Knight Fogblade. We got a Gameciel, the sea turtle. This is the secret rare. We have one Beauregard dragon, and then Dark Lord Ichel. None of these have never been used. I basically got them from the Relentless Revenge pack when I did the pack opening, and I immediately put them in card guards, basically, because I know most people prefer to have them kind of fresh, and here they are, just kind of waiting for the taking. So I ended up keeping one of the Beauregard dragons just because why not? It was a Link 4 playing Firewall got banned, so. Man, I honestly I like the fact that Firewall's banned. But without further ado, I will see you in the next one.